So we'll take the story of Achan and Joshua,
Hmm.
right? Where Achan sins, the transgression is clear. He takes the plunder that is supposed to be dedicated for harem. But he's not it's not an individual execution, right? I believe it is extends to his family and even to his animals,
Hmm. To his
right?
possessions, yeah.
Okay. Um Maybe that kind of raises the question then. Like, should we not maybe we shouldn't see that as bearing on Achan's eternal salvation more than just his life is ended and the lives of his family and children? It's a temporal punishment. It's not we don't know that it's an eternal punishment. Would what's your thoughts on that? Something like
So
that.
so three things we need to think about.
Okay.
First of all, we have the issue of, is this a story about his eternal destiny? And the answer is no. The Old
Yeah.
Testament
Yeah.
almost never talks about that, in
Right.
part because we're still working our way towards even understanding, like, resurrection has not been fully disclosed yet. That's going to unfold through the period of the Old Testament. And so we're still thinking nationally, corporately, as this analogy, more so than individually, although Abraham founds it in Genesis 15, so it's always on the mind. Secondly, we have the question of why is the family punished alongside him? And although some will suggest that this is a corporate punishment, his sin, but they get called for it, Deuteronomy 24 is already in place. Deuteronomy 24 says, right, that we're not going to have the children, in particular, right, the son punished for the father or the father punished for the son. So that would actually be a violation of the law that's already given. So I think the
Okay.
third option would be then that, okay, where did he hide all the loot? Well, he
They
hid
were
it in the
complicit.
family tent, which would
Oh,
imply
okay.
then the family. I
Yeah.
mean, if I dig up the floorboards in the living room and I throw a
Yeah.
bunch of stash under there, my family knows, and they could have
Mm,
disclosed that sin. I could have gone and disclosed it, but right, but if I didn't and they didn't, then they are complicit in that act. And I think that's the most reasonable explanation in light of Deuteronomy 24, 24:16, and even in Deuteronomy 5:9, that this downhill punishment is to those who hate me, those who continue. Because, right,
right.
we have
Okay.
the counter illustration here, is Rahab, right?
Right.
Rahab is a
Right.
Canaanite. She's not an Israelite. So if this is some sort of even ethnic struggle, which is how it's usually cast, some sort of genocide, then Achan gets a pass because he's of the right ethnicity. And Rahab, thanks for saving us, but we still have to kill you, right?
Yeah.
But that
Yeah.
doesn't happen.
No.
She responds in faith to the testimony she's received of God, and she is saved, becomes part of the line of the Messiah. And then he is judged here because he's not acted in accordance with the instructions, and so moves in those kinds of directions. So now I think that's sort of the ways I would think about this in the context. I think there is corporate punishment, but because they were corporately guilty.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
eh,
that's good. I hadn't thought about that. I mean, and one is I think true. There is a sense of me on the first point of we are imposing a sort of New Testament understanding of the afterlife, right? Maybe onto that story and thinking, well, he transgressed, he was killed, he must be damned to hell. But we don't know that.
right,
That's not been revealed. But then
right.
also that's interesting. So Deuteronomy 24 already in place. Well, it does seem now when you think about it that the family probably was and the children, especially were complicit in his transgression, right? They
But
were
but
on
let's
board with
let's
it
look
in
at a
some way.
corporate
Yeah.
consequence, though, right? Remember
Yeah.
when they go up to Ai, thousands of them die in that battle, right?
Yeah. And
Joshua's
there's
like,
and right.
let's not tire everybody out.
Yeah,
God's with
it's
us.
gonna
We
be
only need a
easy. It's
few.
gonna be
But
yeah,
God's
yeah.
doing the work. We're just following in obedience, and then they get slaughtered. So
That's
this is a
right.
case where that makes it clear this is not
Yeah,
about their salvation, right? Those people were innocent of
they
this
were
sin,
right.
yet there was a consequence to the nation because there was contamination within the nation. So that's a temporal punishment that fell on those men, those families who lost those men. And that's one of the ways of looking at this. This was an individual family's act of sinfulness that had corporate consequences for Israel. But none of that teaches us explicitly about the nature of their ultimate salvation,
Right.
because we don't know that all those who died were righteously related to God and faith? We don't know. And so it's not asking and answering those kinds of questions. And so that's this. The other thing this does for us is it helps explain some of the relationship between good things that happen with repentance and salvation language with repentance. It's not talking about me being saved because I repented. It's talking about drawing out of the corporate punishments through repentance and drawing in the corporate blessings through
Right.
repentance.
Yeah.
That God is not motivated to save because of that, but He may mitigate punishment, or He may, you know, move in a direction from punishment to blessing because of the responsive nature of someone. But it's not about final salvation.